Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Izuku does have a quirk, the morphing ability, part 1. I don't own this fanfic, and also make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, Hugh-Jainus, and support him for writing this awesome fanfic, link is in the description. Let's begin the story. The deep booming voice of All Might bellowed throughout the computer room as the shelves shook from the reverberation from the speakers. This must have been the 1000th time that Izuku has watched this video, at least that's what his mother said. But one could hardly blame a young boy for wanting to see such an amazing video over and over again. All Might was the coolest hero ever, and this particular video, depicting him saving hundreds of civilians at once with that signature shining smile on his face, was by far Izuku's favorite. All Might is so cool. I wanna be just like him, I'm gonna be a great hero someday. Right, Kaken. Fuck yeah. But you are gonna have to fight me for the top spot, Deku. Don't think you can surpass me. Bakugo Katsuki had to be the only person that Izuku knew that was as big of a fan of All Might as he was. The two boys met on the first day of kindergarten, and their mutual desire to be amazing heroes, along with their idolization for the number one hero, helped them become fast friends. Izuku referred to Bakugo as Kaken simply because Katsuki was a little too hard for him to say. Bakugo had a similar instance where he saw Izuku's name in writing and misread the kanji. There was a debate between the two over Katsuki referring to Izuku as Deku due to the reading that Katsuki interpreted meaning one that is useless or cannot do anything, but ultimately Izuku was convinced that it was just a nickname like Kaken was. Just you wait, Deku. Once we get our quirks there will be nothing to stop me from being the greatest hero ever. Better than All Might, even. And don't worry, you can be my sidekick. Bakugo was a confident kid who never shied away from speaking his mind in his signature loudmouth style. Wah, come on Kaccha, I don't wanna be a sidekick, I wanna be a hero too. Some would say that Izuku and Katsuki's opposing personalities were part of the reason they were good friends. One was brash and expressive, the other timid and reserved. They sort of balanced each other out in a way and affected how the other acted at times. Katsuki crossed his arms and looked away with a pout, but after a few seconds, he turned back to his friend with a smirk. I'll think about it. The two boys shared a smile and turned back to the computer screen that they were previously looking at. Wanna watch it again, Kaken? Fuck yeah. Rewind that shit, Deku. Just as the two boys were about to restart the video, the door to the room burst open to reveal Katsuki's mother Mitsuki glaring at her son. Katsuki. What the fuck did I tell you about swearing, you little shit? She grabbed her son by the ear and began dragging him across the floor and out into the hallway, with Katsuki kicking and screaming the whole way. Let go of me, you old bat. Deku, save yourself. Izuku stood petrified with fear as Mitsuki yanked her son out of the room and around the corner out of sight. Moments later, Izuku's mother Inko peeked her head into the room and gave her son a nervous smile. Maybe it's time to take a break from the computer for today. Come to the kitchen for a snack. Beast mode. Izuku was sitting under a tree in the playground, writing away in his notebook about heroes that his mother had gotten him. Ever since she and Kaken had helped him learn how to read and write, he found the perfect outlet for his countless thoughts and ideas about all his favorite heroes. The rest of the kids in class preferred to run around and play all the breaks and usually left Izuku alone, which was fine by him. Izuku liked to play as much as any kid, but sometimes it was nice for him to just unwind and fill some pages out of hero analysis for the future. By his sides, several squirrels had scampered down from the treetops and stood near him, eyeing his activity curiously. Izuku always wondered what it was about him that animals were so drawn to. Everywhere he went, if he stayed outside anywhere for long enough, wildlife would eventually come towards him. He didn't mind much, though. Animals were so interesting to him and were probably his favorite thing after heroes. The case with animal-themed heroes was a whole other conversation in itself. Deku? Izuku was shaken out of his train of thought when he heard his best friend call out to him. He looked up to see Katsuki sprinting towards him and skidded to a halt in front of where he was sitting. Oh hey Kaken. What's up that made you so excited? Katsuki stood there for a moment, hands on his knees, and hunched over to catch his breath. Huff huff Deku. I just came back from the doctor's. Check this shit out. Izuku raised an eyebrow for a moment before the gears clicked in his brain and he immediately leaped to his feet in anticipation. Katsuki held his hands out, palms facing towards the sky, and made a face of pure concentration. Slowly his palms began to emit smoke before they suddenly ignited into small orange sparks. I got my quirk. Isn't it badass? Izuku's eyes were gleaming with excitement as he watched his best friend showcase his newly developed quirk. That's so cool. You have a super awesome quirk. How does it work? Katsuki smirked victoriously. The doctor said my sweat is explosive, like some chemical called nitroglycerin. I can make explosions in my palms and blast bitches to bits. Izuku had his notebook out to a fresh page and began furiously writing. Well, that actually makes a whole lot of sense considering your parents' quirks. With Auntie Mitsuki's glycerin quirk and Uncle Masaru's oxidizing sweat quirk, it makes perfect sense that when combined, you could make sweat that could explode. It really is cool how your quirk is like a perfect combination of your parents' quirk, like some kind of perfect recipe. Just think about all the different things you could do with your quirk. Kitsuki stood with a throbbing vein, impatiently seeing Izuku fall into another one of his incoherent muttering spells. He and Izuku were both fairly smart for their age, but the green-haired nerd had way too much shit packed into that egghead of his. A light bulb went off in Kitsuki's head and a sadistic smile stretched across his face. He put his palms on either side of Izuku's ears and activated his quirk. Hop hop, Izuku leapt about 20 feet in the air and landed unceremoniously on the ground, leaving Kitsuki rolling on the floor with laughter and the rest of the kids in the playground looking their way, wondering what was going on. As both boys got up from the ground, Kitsuki wiping a few tears from his eyes and Izuku rubbing his behind with a pout, a crowd of other kids formed around them. "Hey, Kitsuki, you got your quirk?" one girl asked. He nodded and showed the rest of the class in the same way he had demonstrated to Izuku earlier. Many us and us were had at the revelation of such a powerful quirk. Wow, that makes Kitsuki the fourth kid in class with a quirk now. As more and more kids praised Kitsuki's quirk and swarmed him with questions, he felt something very warm welling up within himself. He slowly formed a wide grin and faraway look in his eyes as the compliments and questions poured in. I'm amazed. The moment that Kitsuki knew would come eventually. This was the moment that he knew it would be clear that he was cut from a different cloth from everyone else. With this quirk, nothing could stop him from reaching the top and being the strongest hero of all time. Out of the corner of his eye, Kitsuki noticed Izuku behind the crowd, returning to his seat under the tree and beginning to write in his notebook with a barely noticeable frown on his face. Kitsuki stared at Izuku for a few moments, now completely ignoring all of the kids around him. That nerd. Izuku and Kitsuki were walking through the forest, knee-deep in another one of their wonderful adventures into the great unknown. It had been 2 weeks since Kitsuki had manifested his quirk, and the ash-blonde hothead was finally getting the hang of controlling his explosions. In fact, it had been almost 3 days since he accidentally blew something up and got scolded by his mom. With his hands crossed behind his head, Kitsuki stopped walking, causing Izuku to bump into his back. "If Kaken, would you stop like that?" Izuku held his butterfly net in his hands, tilting his head to the side in confusion as to why his friend decided to just stop in the middle of nowhere. Deku Kitsuki stared down Izuku with his arms crossed, a frown on his face. "What the hell is wrong with you, huh?" Izuku gulped. "I don't know what you're talking about, Kaken." "What do you mean?" Kitsuki smacked his hands together, creating an explosion powerful enough to startle Izuku onto his butt. "Don't give me that bullshit, you fucking nerd. Why the fuck have you been acting so off lately? And don't give me some garbage excuse or I'm gonna blast your face to the moon, got it?" Izuku wrung his hands around the handle of his net nervously. "Well, it's just that you already got your quirk and it's so strong and everything. What if I get mine and it's not good enough for me to be a hero like All Might and I can't keep up with you? I mean, my mom's quirk is only attracting small objects and she never told me anything about dad's." "Shut the fuck up, Deku." Kitsuki got right in Izuku's face, a furious scowl on his own. "What kind of pussy ass talking is that, huh? Who cares about your mom's quirk or about your deadbeat fucking dad? You don't even have your quirk yet and you are already acting like a pathetic little chode." Kitsuki grabbed Izuku by the collar and bore a hole through his face with his intense stare. "You think All Might never had to do stuff that was hard? You think he was crying like you, or did he say fuck it and keep going? Of course you'll never be as good as me, I'm awesome. But if you keep acting like a little bitch before you even know what your quirk is, you'll never be shit. I'm not gonna waste my time carrying around a useless little bitch, Deku." Kitsuki let Izuku go and turned away from him with his arms crossed. The two stood silent for a few moments, the only sounds being the wind whistling through the trees and the faint babbling of a brook somewhere past the tree line. Izuku sat on the ground, staring at the ground with his hair shadowing his bright emerald eyes. Would a hero feel like this? My story hasn't even started yet. I need to get to the start line before anything else. That's what a hero would do. That's what All Might would do, right? Kaken is not gonna stop for me, no one is. I need to think like a hero and stay strong. Kitsuki tapped his foot impatiently. If the damn nerd was not gonna shape up soon, he was gonna blast the shit out of him and ditch his ass. Just as Kitsuki's patience was about to run out, he felt a hand grip tightly on his shoulder. He turned to see Izuku with a look he had never seen before in his life. There was a gleam in his green eyes that was undeniably defiant and full of fire. Kaken Izuku kept his expression steady. "Thank you." Kitsuki scoffed and smacked Izuku's hand off of his shoulder. "Shut up. I don't need your shitty thanks. You still ain't shown that you are anything but a pebble." Despite the harsh words, Izuku knew Katsuki well enough to read between the lines and nodded with a smile. Just you wait. Beast mode. Izuku felt as satisfied as could be. His mom had just taken him out for a super special dinner for his 6th birthday, where he had the chance to eat his weight in katsudon before sharing a delicious ice cream sundae with his lovely mother. He had received wonderful gifts from both his mother and the Bakugo family, but what Izuku really wanted more than anything was for his quirk to finally manifest. Most of his class had gotten their quirks already, and Izuku was starting to get worried about why he was taking so long. To be fair, quirks manifested anywhere between birth and about 6 or 7 years old, so he was still within that window, but that didn't make it any easier for him to wait. The visit to the doctor had revealed that he may be a late bloomer, as his physical growth was slightly behind some kids his age, as well, meaning that it was entirely possible for his quirk to be just as behind. So all Izuku could really do was wait and see. Kaken had yelled at him for not doing more to prepare for heroics besides researching, so he tried to be more active and trained with his blonde companion. He also asked his mom to let him learn some sort of martial arts, but he wouldn't start until later in the year. As he and his mother were turning the corner onto the street of their apartment building, Izuku noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. Curiously, the young boy peered into an alleyway to see something rustling between a few bags of trash. "Izuku, come on honey, don't go playing in the trash, it's dirty." Inko tried her best to scold her son, but the young mind was too curious to be stopped at times. She followed Izuku towards the source of the rustling to see her son kneeling before a small Rottweiler puppy. "Hey there little one, where'd you come from?" Izuku stuck his hand out and the puppy tentatively moved towards him. Izuku closed the rest of the distance, petting the dog on its head. The puppy slowly warmed up to the affection and began panting happily. Inko moved towards the two, but that startled the dog and it hid behind Izuku's leg. Inko observed the physical state of the animal and could tell that it had been out on its own for quite some time. And from the look that Izuku was giving it, she had a feeling where this day would be going. Even so, she had to at least pretend to put up some sort of fight so Izuku wouldn't become too spoiled. "Mom, she's all alone. Can we keep her?" Izuku was a master of the puppy dog look, and it did not help at all that Inko was a sucker for all things Izuku. She did her best to put up a strong front and crossed her arms. "Now, Izuku. Having a pet is a big responsibility. I can do it, I promise. I'm gonna be the best hero ever, right? I can save her and take care of her. Please, Mom." Izuku was bowing before his mother, and the dark-coated puppy was curiously mirroring his actions, causing Inko to be almost overloaded at the cute display. "How can I say no to this? Like I could have said no, anyway." Inko sighed. "Okay, Izuku. We can keep her. Hooray." Izuku cheered as he scooped up the puppy into his arms. "But you are giving her a bath as soon as we get home." Beast mode. Izuku sat on the floor of his room, playing with the newest addition to his little family. Luckily, one of their downstairs neighbors was giving away some old dog stuff, so they didn't have to buy as much as they would have otherwise. As he tossed a rubber ball across the room for the umpteenth time, his mind ran rampant with what having a dog would change for him. "I can take you for walks before school and then after dinner. Oh, you can go on adventures with me and Kaken. He seems kinda mean at first, but he is my best friend in the whole wide world. Oh, wait, what should I name you?" Izuku reached down and scratched his puppy behind the ears, eliciting contented growling as she leaned into her new owner's ministrations. "What would you like to be named, huh? What would you like to be named?" Izuku affectionately scratched the pup's exposed belly, smiling at her happy reactions. Suddenly, the dog rolled over onto its feet and began looking around Izuku's room. Understable, being in a new environment and all. The puppy slowly patted her way around, sniffing every now and then, and stopped under Izuku's bed, where she sniffed several more times before ducking under the overhanging blanket and pulling out one of Izuku's All Might action figures that must have fell off of the shelf and gotten pushed under there. "Hey, hey, hey. Be careful with the teeth." Izuku carefully took the figure from the dog and inspected it for any scratches or noticeable imperfections. He was relieved to see his figure still in mint condition, the smiling face of All Might smiling back at him. Izuku was particularly proud of this figure, it was ultra rare and there were only 100 in existence. He wiped it off and carefully placed it back onto the shelf above his bed. Eyeing the special Hero of Hope costume the figure donned, Izuku's eyes lingered on the large hope written across the plastic All Might's chest. He turned to his puppy, who was sitting, and looked up at him with a head tilted in curiosity. "Hope, huh?" Beast mode. Deku was really pushing his damn luck. He always took his sweet ass time, and Katsuki almost always found himself waiting for the nerd to show up. The blonde sat impatiently on top of a large rock just outside of the forest that he and Izuku frequently explored. "That stupid fucking fuck, he better have a good fucking reason for this shit." Just as Katsuki was about to dive further into an anger-fueled rant about punctuality and making people wait, he saw Izuku running towards him with some kind of dog or some shit running behind him. Hey Kaken. Sorry for taking so long. Shut up, Deku. About time you fucking showed up. And what's with the dog? Katsuki bent down to inspect the puppy, who carefully edged towards the stranger in front of her. Oh, I found her last week all on her own. She had no one else, so I couldn't just leave her there. Izuku bent down and gestured towards Katsuki. Go ahead, girl. Don't be shy, this is Kaken. The dog turned from her owner towards Katsuki and began sniffing him out. After a few moments, she yipped happily and leapt into the boy's arms, licking his face repeatedly. Get off you damn mutt. Stop licking me. Katsuki could barely contain his laughter as the animal assaulted his face with affection. After a few hilarious moments of witnessing the adorable scene, Izuku stepped in and pulled his dog off his best friend's face. What the fuck, Deku? Control your damn dog. Despite trying his best to be angry, Katsuki couldn't wipe the gleeful grin plastered on his face. He wiped his wet face with the bottom of his t-shirt and tried his best to regain his composure. So what's her name? Izuku smiled and ruffled his pet's head. Nozomi. I feel like taking her off of the streets gave her hope for a proper life, so she should represent the kind of hero that I want to be. One that stands as a pillar of hope that everyone can look up to and rely on. That's pretty lame, Deku. Katsuki turned his nose up at Izuku with his arms crossed. Hesitantly, he turned his head towards Nozomi and stuck his hand out. Nozomi waddled up to him and licked his hand affectionately, causing Katsuki to smirk in approval. Heh, at least she knows I'm awesome. Alright, we've wasted enough damn time. Come on Deku. Katsuki broke into a run and disappeared into the woods. See, Nozomi. Kaken is a good guy once you get to know him. Nozomi barked in approval before the two ran off after their friend. Beast mode. Izuku, Katsuki and Nozomi had made their way to a clearing overlooking a small pond where they sat to relax for a few minutes. The pair of boys took turns tossing a stick into the distance for Nozomi to fetch. Hey, losers. They turned to see a group of kids from their class standing a few feet away from them, a mix of cocky smirks and angry frowns among the crowd. The apparent leader of the group was Hineshi, one of the kids in their class with a powerful quirk, and was the self-proclaimed king of their grade until Katsuki manifested his and quickly showed him up. Never one to be talked down to, Katsuki immediately leapt to his feet with a scowl on his face and stepped towards his opposition as Izuku and Nozomi trailed slightly behind him. The fuck did you say, you little bitch, you think I can't take you, Skellington? The vein formed on Hineshi's forehead at the nickname regarding his quirk and he had to be held back by a few of his cronies before he sprouted any bones from his arms. Come on Kaken, it's not worth it. Just leave them, let's just get out of here. Izuku put a shoulder on his friend to try and reason with him, but it was quickly jerked off. Shut up, Deku. How the hell you gonna be a hero if you keep letting fuckers like them talk shit about you? You should listen to your boyfriend, Katsuki. There's no way you can take on all of us by yourself. What is Izuku gonna do, huh? He doesn't even have a quirk yet. Every one of Hineshi's lackeys began laughing along with him, deeply angering Katsuki and even slightly miffing Izuku. Hineshi's laughter was interrupted when a combusting palm impacted squarely in his face with a ferocious boom. Hineshi fell backwards like a ton of bricks holding his smoldering face, his group of hooligans too stunned to move. Don't fucking talk about shit you ain't know nothing about. Deku is 10 times what you plebs could ever be. Katsuki growled. He instinctively turned his head and glared at Izuku so that he wouldn't mention what was just said or try to say some corny shit. Let's get the hell out of here. You're gonna pay for this, Katsuki. The group of boys picked up their sobbing leader and ran away into the woods, leaving Katsuki with a victorious smirk on his face and Izuku walking up to his side shaking his head. Sheesh, you got him pretty hard, Kaken. Was that really necessary? Who cares what they say? I know I'm not as weak as everyone thinks. Shut up, Deku. Let's get the fuck out of here, I'm hungry. Katsuki shoved his hands into his pockets and trudged off. Izuku nodded and turned to call his dog. Nozomi. He looked around, a bit confused. Nozomi. Where did you go? Izuku was starting to panic a bit. Kaken, she's gone. You must have scared her off with your explosion. Come on, hurry. We have to find her. He wasted no time before breaking off into a sprint into the trees. Damn it, Deku. This isn't my damn fault. Katsuki gritted his teeth before sprinting off after Izuku. You little fucker, you better not be lost. Beast mode. Izuku looked around frantically as he called out Nozomi's name over and over again. He could feel his composure begin to plummet as he saw no signs of his beloved dog anywhere. Stopping to take a breath, Izuku bent over with his arm holding himself up against a tree. Huff huff huff. Okay, calm down. I won't find her if I am just running around like crazy. I need to think about this. Heroes find missing people all the time. I just have to be like a hero. Okay, Izuku caught his breath and did his best to calm himself. If I were Nozomi, what would I do? I need to put myself in the mindset of a dog, think like a dog, think like a dog. Izuku slowly opened his eyes and felt different. Had he always been this low the ground? What was wrong with his eyes? Everything looked weird and gray. He tried to look down at his hands, but he couldn't see them. He could feel his arms and legs, but no fingers or toes. What was going on? Why was he on all fours? Izuku stepped out of the pile of fabric he was somehow buried in. Wait. That was his clothes. Why was he naked? Why did his clothes get so big, or did he shrink? The poor boy was thoroughly confused, but his inner freakout stopped when he caught the scent of something very familiar. Nozomi. Sniff sniff that way. Without another thought, he ran off in the direction of his Rottweiler puppy. Beast mode. Itsuki was getting more and more irritated by the second. First, that damn skeleton bastard comes and starts talking shit, then Deku's dumb cute dumb dog runs away and they have to find it. Now, Kitsuki can't even find Deku. Kitsuki pulled at his spiky blonde hair in frustration. He then noticed something odd several feet ahead of him. What the hell? Kitsuki trailed off as he came upon a pile of clothes. The same clothes that Izuku was wearing. He then saw paw prints in the dirt and sighed in relief. Finally. Kitsuki broke off into a run, following the trail of prints towards what had to be Nozomi and a naked Deku for some reason. Kitsuki chose not to question it, he was too hungry to care. Reaching the end of the trail of footprints, Kitsuki looked around for any sign of the nerd or his dog when he heard barking nearby. Heading in that direction, Kitsuki stopped dead in his tracks when he saw Nozomi playing with another Rottweiler, except green instead of black and brown. He rubbed his eyes and looked at the scene again, confused that he still saw the same thing. What the hell? Both puppies turned their heads towards him and made a mad dash in his direction. Nozomi leapt into Kitsuki's torso and nestled herself comfortably inside his shirt with her head poking out of his collar, while the green dog jumped around yipping frantically. Kitsuki unconsciously rubbed Nozomi's head while he eyed the weird green dog suspiciously. He looked down at Nozomi's happy expression with a raised eyebrow. Where did the nerd go? Nozomi barked and pointed her small paw towards the green dog before them. What you means that's Deku? That's a damn dog, you damn dog. The green dog barked several more times at Kitsuki before his very eyes, it started to transform. Kitsuki stood slack-jawed as the form of Rottweiler began to disappear as the parts of a human began to take shape. The form slowly stood up to reveal a slightly confused-looking and very naked Izuku. Can I explain? Beast mode. So your quirk is that you can turn into a dog. Well, when you say it like that, it doesn't sound cool, Kakin. That's because it isn't cool. Kitsuki exclaimed, what the hell kinda hero could you be if you can only turn into a dog? Actually, Kakin, there are plenty of canine-related quirks among heroes I think even. God damn it, Deku. You know what I'm trying to say. Couldn't you have a quirk to at least turn into a cool animal, like a lion or something? Izuku, still sitting naked on the ground, sighed wistfully, heh, yeah that would be pretty cool, huh? Imagine me turning into a lion. Kitsuki turned to face Izuku. Well anyway, let's get the hell out of here, I'm fucking starving. He was now facing a green-furred mountain lion staring at him inquisitively. It happened again. This came out as a series of low growls, mind you. Kitsuki's arms feel lifeless at his side. Did you just? Izuku transformed back to his human form and sat on the ground with a sheepish grin on his face. Heh, guess my quirk is pretty cool after all, huh? Beast mode. After a long-awaited meal, Kitsuki and Izuku spent the rest of their afternoon experimenting with the latter's quirk to try and see just what it was capable of. As it turned out, Izuku's quirk allowed him to transform into any known animal that he could think of. Reptiles, birds, and Izuku could do it all. For some reason, Kitsuki particularly enjoyed it when Izuku tried to turn into different insects, but he spent the majority of his time trying out more battle-ready animals. He felt particularly cool transforming into a giant eastern lowland gorilla, towering over his 6-year-old friend. Izuku spent hours testing out his quirk, long after Bakugo got tired of it and went home and was barely able to trudge home with Nozomi energetically bouncing by his side. I'm home, Izuku drawled out as he dragged his feet through the doorway. Oh, Izuku. You're back later than usual. Did you have fun on your adventures today with Kitsuki-kun and Nozomi? Inko said, wiping her hands on her apron. Izuku was suddenly full of energy again, shooting to his feet with a wide smile on his face. Mom, guess what? I got my quirk today. Inko's jaw hit the ground before she scooped her son up into the air and twirled him around in circles. Oh, honey, I'm so happy to hear that. I'm sure you must be so excited to learn all about it and be the best you can be. The Midoriya matriarch wiped a few stray tears from her eyes as she led her son into the living room. Honey, show me your quirk. I want to know exactly what to expect from my little hero in the making. Izuku nodded vigorously before running to the center of the living room. He scrunched his eyes in a state of focus before transforming into a green Rottweiler puppy and leaping onto his mother's lap, panting happily up at her. So cute. Inko grabbed puppy Izuku and began rubbing their cheeks together affectionately. Izuku squirmed in her grasp and back onto the ground before transforming back to normal. Cool, huh? I can transform into any animal I can think of. It is amazing, sweetie. But why are you naked? Inko asked with a sweat drop. Oh, well, my clothes don't change when I transform, Mom. Actually, I had to take my clothes off so they wouldn't rip when I turned into bigger animals. When I get my hero costumes, I'm gonna have to get some kind of material that can stretch and shrink so I'm not naked all the time. I can't be a hero if my PP is out all the time. Izuku. I bet there are heroes that have transformations that can mess up their costumes unless they are made from special materials. Izuku. I wonder if I can get that kinda stuff too. Then I'd always have to have it on or else I could not use my quirk as much as I want. I wonder if I will want to eat what my animal eats after I transform. Oh, what else might happen after I become a certain animal? Izuku. Inko finally shook her son from his ramblings and held his shoulders square so that they were facing each other. Izuku, I just want to let you know. You're gonna be a wonderful hero someday. She pulled her son into a loving embrace, which he immediately returned with as much strength as his little arms could muster. Both Midoriyas had steady tears forming down their faces as they enjoyed the tender moment. Thanks, Mom. I'll make you proud and be the best hero ever. Beast mode. Izuku and Katsuki rounded the corner on their way towards the park a few blocks away from their school. They found that this park was perfect for training as it had a large jungle gym that they could maneuver through and a swing set because well, swings are the best. Hey. The two turned around to see the group of boys from a while back as angry and douchy looking as usual. Hineshi was once again leading the pack, but he was now sporting a large burn spreading across his face, courtesy of Bakugo's attack. This time, he was much more prepared, already having activated his quirk to produce dull bone rods from his arms. You asswhips aren't gonna get away so easily this time. Hineshi shouted as his cronies activated their various quirks and surrounded the two friends. You're gonna pay for this. He spat out, pointing to the mark on his face. Itsuki growled with anger and his palms started sparking. You talk a lot, but all I see is a bunch of bitches who are about to get their asses kicked. Come on guys, why do we have to fight? We aren't supposed to be using our quirks in public either, we could get in trouble. Kaken, don't let them make you. Izuku was interrupted by a sucker punch to the back of the head, knocking him down to the ground as he clutched his head in pain. That strike served as enough distraction for the group of almost a dozen to get the jump on Katsuki, overwhelming his quirk and strength via sheer force of numbers. Katsuki managed to get a few solid explosions in on the mob, but there were simply too many of them for him to handle at once. He quickly found himself on the ground, trying his best to shield his face and sternum from the barrage of fists and feet raining down on him from above. However, he knew he could only keep his shell of defense up for so long, feeling the brunt of more and more hits as time went on. Just outside of the circle of boys beating down on Katsuki's fetal form, Izuku lay on his stomach, trying his best to make sense of what had just happened to him. His head was spinning and could barely hear muffled grunting and yelling over the ringing in his ears. Beginning to shake the cobwebs off, his vision cleared and he made out with the group kicking the crap out of Katsuki. Seeing his best friend in such a state made Izuku's blood boil and, as he shakily rose to his feet, the green-headed boy could feel his anger coursing through his body. Stop it, he mumbled, clutching the back of his head. Izuku found his bearings and felt a rage well within him that he had never felt before. Get at him. The guttural cry of pure rage shook the playground to its very core, causing every one of the group to turn around and widen their eyes in fear. Katsuki let out a shaky breath and was barely able to keep his non-swollen eye open as he took on the form of Izuku. Despite the pain he was feeling all over his body, Katsuki let out a pained chuckle. Damn nerd, you bitches are fucked. Hineshi and his gang were frozen in fear, staring face to face with a literal beast, Izuku in the form of an enormous green Siberian tiger, staring them down. Izuku bared his sharp fangs and slowly edged towards them, a low growl rumbling out of his throat. What the hell is that? He's a monster. Hineshi barely had time to shriek in fear before Izuku pounced forward and knocked all of his cronies out with a single swipe of his massive front paw. He landed and snarled at the terrified boy, who was now on his behind, shuffling back as fast as he could. Get back. Stay away. Hineshi swiped his arms wildly in front of him, trying his best to fend off the ferocious Izuku stalking towards him angrily. Izuku came to a stop mere inches away from the boy, growling quietly but staring him dead in the face. Izuku then let out a vicious roar, causing Hineshi to scream in utter terror and scramble to his feet in an attempt to escape. However, Izuku managed to grab onto his pant leg, yanking the boy's trousers down before tearing them to shreds. Ineshi was left to run home crying, pantsless, and in dire need of a new pair of underwear. Immediately after being left alone, Izuku, still in his tiger form, made his way over to Katsuki and began licking his face, trying to rouse him and clean off the blood caking him. Deku Katsuki slowly came to, spitting out a few gobfuls of blood as he reached his hand towards Izuku's nose and let off a small explosion. Izuku jolted backwards, whining and rubbing the spot of impact. He transformed back to normal and sniffled as he held his nose. "Kaken, that hurt," he cried. "That's what you get, nerd, don't ever lick me again." Katsuki rose to a sitting position and wiped a forearm across his mouth. "It really take me getting my ass kicked for you to finally grow a pair, you stupid fuck." Izuku sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. "Sorry, Kaken, I don't think they are gonna bother us anymore, at least. I would fucking hope not. You made that bitch piss his pants. Oh, and you know how your ass couldn't figure out what the hell your hero name was gonna be? I'm pretty sure I got the perfect one." Izuku leaned forward expectantly. "But put some clothes on first, you freak." Izuku fell flat on his face. Kaken. Despite the world being overrun by heroes and villains with as many quirks as the human mind could imagine, there always had to be some sort of mundane or ordinary things to balance out all that wonderment. School was one of those mundane things. Izuku was well aware of the importance of a strong academic background and actually enjoyed learning new things. But his junior high left a tiny little bit to be desired in terms of overall quality in both staff and curriculum. This was part of the reason why he tended to zone out of whatever rudimentary lesson that the less than enthusiastic teachers would be droning on about at any given point in time. No, instead, he made much more productive use of his time, in his mind anyway. Over the years, Izuku's passion for hero analytics had blossomed from a hobby to a full-blown obsession. He was currently on volume number 13 of his hero analysis for the future, with no signs of slowing down. Even if his teachers cared a lot more about doing their jobs, Izuku had a feeling they would not bug him too much about his lack of attentiveness in class, simply because his grades were so high. The only person keeping Izuku from taking the spot at the top of his class was his biggest rival and best friend, Bakugo. If there was one thing that was a widespread fact among the students and staff at Aldera Junior High, it was that if any kids from the school had a shot at becoming a pro hero one day, it was Bakugo and Midoriya. Nicknamed the ferocious duo by their peers, the two boys were at the absolute top of the food chain. They ate, trained, studied, and did just about everything else together. Boys wanted to be them, girls wanted to be with them. No matter the context, everyone wanted a piece of them on their inevitable rise to the top. Izuku-kun. Do you want to go to the arcade with us after school? Yup, Izuku figured it was about time. At least a few times a day, different groups of girls in his class would try and get him and Katsuki to hang out with them. At first, Izuku just thought they were trying to be friendly, but Katsuki did his darndest to drill it into his head that the girls were nothing but attention seekers that wanted to be associated with them, much like most of the people in his class. At first, he thought his friend was just being paranoid, but after a while, it became clear that they all had ulterior motives. It was a somewhat sad reality, only being wanted for association's sake and not actual friendship, but Izuku had come to terms with it a bit. He learned to let them down easy and go about his business. It wasn't like he wasn't happy with Kaken, Auntie Mitsuki and Uncle Masaru, Nozomi, and his mom in his life. Turning to face the trio of girls standing in front of his desk, Izuku gave them a polite smile. "Good morning, Akina, Yui, and Hiyori. I didn't know me and Kaken were supposed to hang out after school. Maybe ask him if he wants to go." Redirecting girls to Katsuki was always Izuku's ace in the hole, as the blonde teen had no qualms with telling them off. "Patsik, fuck off. We ain't got time to hang around with you losers." Short and sweet classic Kaken. Usually, this would be the end of the conversation, but from the looks that the girls were giving each other, Izuku had a bad feeling that there would be some sort of scheme in the works. "Don't be like that, Katsuki-kun." Akina whined, twirling a strand of her between her fingers. "Nah, Katsuki-kun, your mom is a real estate agent, right?" Hiyori asked. Izuku raised an eyebrow at the question, while Katsuki eyed the girl suspiciously. "Yeah, what's it to you?" "Oh, nothing." The girl casually swung her intertwined hands in front of her. "It's just that my mom is a real estate agent too, and she has a Bakugo Mitsuki that works at the same agency as her. They are friends, even. And from what I am told, Mitsuki-san talks a lot about her son and when he will finally start talking to girls. Now, what would she say if she knew that you were voluntarily telling girls off that they want to spend quality time with you?" She gave her friends a victory pose as Katsuki ground his teeth in anger. "God damn it. Fine. We can go to the stupid arcade after school for 1 hour. And you fucks are buying." The girls squealed in delight with Izuku trying to contain his laughter from his seat behind his spiky-haired friend. If there was anyone scarier when mad than Katsuki, it was easily his mom Mitsuki. As much as Katsuki talked back to her, he always listened to his mother in the end, and for good reason. Izuku slightly shivered at the thought of an enraged Auntie Mitsuki. He had witnessed that many times over his years of friendship with Kaken. Mitsuki shot around and slapped Izuku's desk with an explosion. "The fuck are you laughing about, Deku? If I have to go, you have to go, you fucking nerd." Izuku stopped laughing and groaned, "Fine. I'll come." They were partners, after all, he couldn't abandon Kaken, even for trivial things like this. The girls cried in joy, causing Izuku and Katsuki to slump their shoulders in defeat. "Fucking bullshit, damn old lady," Katsuki muttered under his breath, arms crossed and an angry pout on his face. They were saved from any further coercing by the morning bell as their teacher came through the doorway and hushed them all into their seats. "Good morning, class. Please take your seat so we can get started. As you know, you're in your third year, so we need to start talking about career paths. So, I have these career aptitude forms to fill out, but you all are aiming for the hero course." He threw the forms into the air as the majority of the class activated their quirks and cheered their lungs out. "Now, I get that you're all excited, but quirk use is still prohibited. I'm not about to miss out on tenure cause you kids can't take it easy. Hey, don't lump me in with all these extras, sensei." Katsuki leaped on top of his desk and stuck a thumb to his chest. "I'm going to UA next year, where I'll claim the top spot again and destroy everyone else on my way to becoming the #1 hero. I'll be better than All Might himself and go down in history as the greatest hero there ever was." "You don't have to rub it in our faces, Katsuki. Yeah, you don't have to act like such a damn hotshot all the time." Katsuki ignored the whines from his peers and continued on with his egotistical monologue. "I aced all the practice exams, and with my awesome quirk, there is no way I'm not getting into UA. UA, huh? Midoriya. Don't you want to go to that school too?" Everyone turned to the back of the class, where Izuku looked up from his notebook. "Yep. I am definitely gonna do my best to get into UA. It was All Might's alma mater after all." The rest of the class murmured wildly about the possibility of both of their top students getting into the national school. UA was notorious as the most prestigious hero school in Japan with a minuscule 0.2% acceptance rate and was where many of the world's current pro heroes began their journeys. Katsuki hopped down from his desk and leaned his face right in front of Deku's, a menacing smile on his face. "Don't think that you're gonna do better than me, Deku. I am the one who is gonna surpass All Might. Try not to break an arm jerking yourself off, nerd." Despite Katsuki's visible aura of intimidation, Izuku showed no signs of backing down and simply shrugged to his longtime friend with a playful smirk on his face. "I guess we'll see then, won't we? Alright, that's enough you two. Please settle down and let's get started on some really interesting stuff. Who has heard of the War of 1812? Yep, school was definitely one of those mundane boring things in life. Beast mode. The fuck do you mean you gotta run an errand? What the fuck, Deku?" In the general sense of the word, Izuku considered himself a pretty nice guy. He tried to be kind to others and took pride in his empathy and sympathy. With that being said, he couldn't help but not feel all that bad that his mom had just texted him to run a few errands after school, meaning that he could not accompany Katsuki and the three girls to the arcade. He did feel slightly guilty, but seeing all three girls clinging to his best friend like their lives depended on it, blushes to accompany their giggles of feminine delight, definitely helped combat that feeling. "My mom just texted me and said she needed some stuff from the store for dinner tonight, but can't get them herself because she is working later than usual." "Sorry." Izuku smiled weakly at his fuming friend, "I can get it quickly and meet you guys there. It should only take me like 15 minutes, tops." Katsuki grumbled under his breath, still not exploding at the girls hanging off of him, much to the impressed surprise of Izuku. "TCH fine. Let's go already, you're on the clock." Cringing at the squealing teenage girls, Katsuki shot a look back at Izuku as he was being dragged out of the classroom. The message was loud and clear in Izuku's head. "Hurry the fuck up or you're dead." Beast mode. Checking the time on his phone, Izuku saw that he was ahead of schedule and sighed in relief that Katsuki would not have to be kept waiting much longer. "I hope Kaken isn't too difficult. I can't imagine how he is right now with just those three girls." Izuku stopped at an intersection, recognizing the area as a path he and Katsuki used to take sometimes, as kids. "Maybe I should take a shortcut." Adjusting his grasp on the plastic grocery bags full of dinner ingredients, Izuku headed through the tunnel. "I keep my ideal soars or no tenmei." Pausing to fish his phone out of his pocket, Izuku fumbled with the device before managing to hit the answer and slide it between his shoulder and ear. "Hello? Hey, sweetie. I just called to check up on you. I read on the news that there is some sort of weird mud villain or something causing some problems in town. Be careful, okay? Izuku chuckled at his mother's worrisome nature. Don't worry mom, I'll be fine. I got all the stuff for dinner, by the way. I'm just gonna head to the arcade with Kakin for a bit first. I'll be home in a bit to start prepping dinner. A loud metallic rattling caused Izuku to trail off as he turned around and saw something emerge from the manhole he had just stepped over. I gotta go mom. Hanging up and putting his bags down, he peered up at the sludge monstrosity towering over him with wide eyes. Looks like I've found a new skin suit to wear. The garbly male voice yelled as tendrils formed on the sides of his body and edged their way towards Izuku. Don't move, kid. It'll only hurt a lot. The sludge man tried to engulf Izuku within his body, but the green-headed boy swiftly leaped back to a safe distance, thanking his years of training for sharpening his instincts. Hold still, you little shit. I'm just gonna take over your body. The villain gurgled out. Right, cause that is a desirable situation that I want to get into. You've convinced me. Izuku quipped. Looking around, Izuku didn't see anyone that could call for a hero or help in any way or to witness if he used his quirk or not. Shit, I could probably turn into something and get the hell out of here or kick this giant booger's ass. Should I risk using my quirk in public? Izuku blamed Kakin for making him love a good fight so damn much. He was shaken out of his contemplation as the sludge villain lunged at him once more, causing him to backpedal rapidly until Izuku was cornered against the wall of the tunnel. You're a quick little runt, aren't ya? But it looks like you are all out of places to go. Now be a good little meatbag and hold still. Detroit. Izuku's head snapped towards the source of the voice so fast, he was surprised he didn't immediately get whiplash. There was absolutely no way in hell. Izuku had heard that he was spotted in town recently, but there had to be abso-fucking-lutely no way that he was here right now. Smash. The gust of wind that followed was not one that Izuku was prepared for, and he had to brace himself fairly hard in order to even just remain on his feet. The sludge villain, however, did not manage to keep his bearings and promptly exploded into a million little goopy bits. As the dust and drips of whatever the hell that guy was cleared, Izuku's eyes almost fell out of his head when he was standing before none other than the greatest hero the world has ever seen. He pulled back his extended arm and fell into his classic pose with his fists planted on his hips, a shining smile on his face. He sent Izuku a thumbs up and walked in his direction. Now directly in front of him, Izuku realized just how much he towered over him. Izuku was still a teenager, sure, but standing at 169 centimeters, 5'6.5", for you Imperial users, he thought he was decently tall for his age. But the tower of muscle looking down at him made Izuku feel like a goddamn toddler. Young man, have no fear. For I am All Might. Izuku finally managed to scream out before his world went black. Beast mode. Izuku slowly stirred to the feeling of light slapping on his cheek. Opening his eyes, he found himself face to face with the symbol of peace himself, the All Might staring down at him. Ah, good to see you are alright, young man. You had me worried there for a second. It took a few seconds for Izuku's brain to register just what was going on. The scene in the tunnel before he passed out flashed through his mind, and his look of confusion was quickly replaced with pure childlike excitement. Oh my god, I can't believe it. You're All Might. I'm your biggest fan in the whole world. I've followed you since I was old enough to read. I know all about all your coolest feats and everything. Can I have your autograph? Hastily digging through his backpack, Izuku whipped out his hero analysis for the future Vol. 13 and flipped through it like a madman to find an open page for his all-time idol to sign. He already signed it. Ha. I already signed it, dear boy. By the way, those notes of yours are very impressive. I have not seen such detailed and thorough analysis in a very long time, and from such a young mind at that. I am always happy to meet a fan, but I must be off. I need to take this villain to the proper authorities. I have been chasing this guy all day. All Might held up a pair of soda bottles containing what looked to be the sludge villain that had attacked earlier, if the creepy blinking eye was anything to go off of at least. As All Might began limbering his legs up to depart, Izuku stood frozen, his mind running a mile a minute. There were so many things about heroics that he needed to know about. More than anything, he needed to talk to his idol about the thoughts that had been plaguing him more and more. What chance could he have like this again, with All Might literally right in front of him? All Might squatted down and sprang high into the air, not noticing the teenage boy just being able to grab onto his leg as he was leaving the ground. As he soared high over the concrete jungle that was Musatafu, All Might felt something squeezing on his calf and looked down to see Izuku holding on to him. Both of them looked at each other for a few moments. What are you doing, young man? I know I said I like to meet fans, but this is a little bit much. Let go of me. But if you let me go from this high up, I'm gonna die. Izuku could barely hear anything with the wind whipping so violently in his ears. He had gotten somewhat used to flying after practicing extensively as different birds, but he had never gone nearly as fast as All Might and by extension, he was currently going. All Might seemed to legitimately take that in as new information. Good point. Beast mode. This was not how Izuku saw his afternoon going. Not only did he almost get attacked by some kind of sower monster sludge villain thing, but he got saved by freaking All Might and even got his autograph. But none of those things combined could compare to what Izuku had learned after they had landed on the rooftop of a nearby apartment building, though. So you're saying that you're dying? Izuku tried his hardest to not let a crack in his voice come through his unsteady speech. It couldn't be, right? There was no way All Might was going to die. He was the greatest hero ever. Not me literally, per se. But the All Might that the world has come to know, the hero All Might will soon become no more. There was something about the scrawny skeletal form of All Might that just kind of creeped Izuku out, but he did his best to not think about it too much. You see, a few years ago, I suffered a terrible injury fighting an absolutely notorious villain. All Might raised his shirt up to reveal a gruesome scar on his torso. Izuku's breath caught in his throat seeing the damage caused to his hero. After countless surgeries and operations, my stomach and about half of my respiratory system are well beyond repair. Letting his shirt fall back down, All Might looked down at his hand, which was now clenched into a fist. At this point, I can probably keep my muscle form up for around 3 hours per day, and even then that isn't taking any extreme activity into account. He turned towards Izuku, a slight frown on his face. Now you know my secret. I don't think I have to tell you that this is not something that should be spread around. Izuku audibly gulped. How could he not be nervous out of his mind? He just basically got threatened by All Might. It didn't matter that he was skinny right now, he was still All Might. Now, if that is all, I must really be going. Wait. Izuku was not even sure himself what he was really going to get out of this conversation, but he had to try. Please All Might, you're the greatest hero the world has ever seen, and there is no one more qualified to answer me. Izuku took a deep breath, willing himself to get everything out without sounding like a nervous little kid. I've wanted to be a hero more than anything else in the world for as long as I can remember. But, everywhere I look, different heroes surface, and all act for different reasons. I always thought you just have to save everyone no matter what, and, as long as you can make people smile, everything would be okay. But the more I think about it, there is so much that goes into it. Politics, logistics, life-death decisions. What if you can't save everyone? What if I find out I'm not good enough to protect all the people that I would be responsible for? Izuku had definitely grown in confidence as he grew up, thanks in large part to Kakin pushing him and the abilities of his quirk, but sitting in front of his all-time idol, he just felt everything wash away and leave him vulnerable and in need of answers to all the doubts that had ever plagued him since he decided that he wanted to become a hero. He heard All Might let out a deep sigh. Midoriya, was it? Izuku merely nodded in response. I am going to be honest with you. If you think that any hero, myself included, can't save everyone all the time, then I've vastly overestimated your intellect. Being a hero means many things, but above all else, a true hero must not falter in the face of adversity and be the pillar of support that the public need them to be. From what you just told me, there is a heavy burden on your mind and more importantly your heart. Heroes must defeat the fear inside themselves before they can even think about saving a single person. But that kind of means it, I would have to say that you don't have what it takes to be a hero. Izuku froze. His head began spinning, his eyes began clouding with tears. His breath became ragged and he had to sit against the wall to try and calm himself. Think about what I said to you today, boy. Heroes cannot hesitate when it comes to doing what is right. Sometimes that includes making tough decisions, and it surely includes making mistakes. If you cannot take those decisions to heart, free yourself of the burden they bring, and learn from them to do better in the future, there is no hope for you. Good day. All Might said before reverting to his muscle form and bounding off of the roof and down to the streets below. Beast mode. Itsuki was going to absolutely blast that damn nerd to fucking kingdom come. How the hell did Deku worm his way out of coming to the arcade and not have to deal with these 3 bitches? If that one girl didn't know his mom, there was no way in hell any of this would be happening right now. As he and the 3 made their way through the streets, the girls talking about just about anything and everything, Akina spoke up from her spot on his left arm. Itsuki-kun, do you have a girlfriend? No. Was his reply irritated. Do you want ONE? The girl stepped forward and stopped in front of him, posing for him in what they thought to be a provocative manner. Kitsuki didn't so much as blink as he continued walking by them with his hands dug into his pockets. No. And stop acting like such whores, you're 15. I wouldn't spit in weak girls like yours as directions, anyway. Now hurry the hell up, I know a shortcut to the arcade through this back street. The trio of girls stood watching Kitsuki's back as he kept walking. They each shared a determined pout and nodded to each other. Kitsuki-kun likes to play hard to get. This caused Kitsuki to stop in his tracks and he turned around with a disbelieved scowl on his face. You bitches brain dead or something? Where the hell did you get that stupid ass idea, huh? You wanna fucking die? Kitsuki had both of his palms out, crackling slightly, as his irritation grew into legitimate anger. The looks of utter fear on the girls' faces brought him some satisfaction, but looking at their eyes, he was confused by the fact that their gazes weren't on him, but behind him. Well, if it isn't just my luck. Another potential skin suit to win, with such a strong quirk too. I'm gonna enjoy this, blondie. Kitsuki slowly turned his head around to see a wave of sludge leap in his direction. Betting his palms out in front of him, Kitsuki let off an explosion strong enough to propel himself back out of harm's way. You three, get the fuck out of here. The girls, presumably too scared to move, looked at Kitsuki in disbelief, but Kitsuki-kun. Oh. I'll take this prick on. Waiting for the girls to escape out of the other end of the alleyway, Kitsuki turned back to the sludge villain and rolled his sleeves up. You think you're some kinda hot shit? I'll show you just who you're messing with, you big pile of snot. Launching himself forward with an explosion, Kitsuki zipped across the alley in an instant and stopped above the villain, where he aimed his hands down, wrists connected. Eat shit. Kaboom. Kitsuki landed and smirked as the smoke cleared from his attack and all that was left was a mess of a pile of goop. Haha. Take that, you shitty fucker. Turning around to step out of the alley, he heard the slimy battle cry a second too late as he suddenly found himself engulfed completely. Beast mode. Izuku could not remember a time where he had felt so defeated. How could he not, after being told what he was by one of the people he looked up to most in the world? Walking aimlessly down the street, the harsh but fair words of All Might rang throughout his mind. Am I really not cut out to be a hero? Wanting to be a hero who makes people feel safe with so much as a smile, that's all I've ever known to want. I have a burden on my heart that I need to overcome. I know I can overthink sometimes, but how can I just completely shut my thoughts out when there are so many things that can happen? Izuku sighed heavily as he slumped his shoulders. Oh shit, I should probably call Kaken and let him know I'm on my way. I hope he didn't blow up at those girls too hard. Wouldn't put it past him, though. Izuku tapped his foot impatiently as the line rang, voicemail not like Kaken to not answer his phone. I guess it's probably loud in the arcade or something. Just as Izuku pocketed his phone, a massive explosion rumbled the ground beneath him. What the hell? He looked to see a massive plume of smoke in the sky, in the exact direction of where the arcade was. Shit. He exclaimed, breaking into a mad sprint towards the source of the explosion. Beast mode. Please stay back, everyone. The villain is unstable and could launch attacks in this direction at any moment. Izuku painted as he came to a stop just outside the scene, being barricaded by pro-heroes and the police. Digging his way through the crowd, he eventually made it to the front, where he saw a plethora of pro-heroes trying to contain the situation. Notably, Backdraft putting out fires, Kamui Woods rescuing civilians from the blast zone, Death Arms, and Mount Lady just standing there. Why aren't the heroes trying to go in and confront the villain? Apparently their quirks aren't suited to deal with a villain made of sludge. The only one that could is probably Backdraft, but he is busy trying to put out the fires from the explosions. Izuku turned from the people talking in the crowd and back towards the center of the square, where his eyes widened when he saw the same sludge villain that had attacked him earlier in the day. How did this guy escape? All Might caught him in those soda bottles and put them safely away in his pants pocket. The same one that Izuku grabbed onto before they went up in the air. Shit. Izuku had his head in his hands. This is my fault. I need to do something to fix this, but can I really? Do I have what it takes? Even if I do with all these people here, there is no way in hell that I can get away with using my quirk. I'd get fined out of my ass for sure and undoubtedly get blacklisted by UA shit. The villain suddenly began flailing wildly, letting off several more explosions before it separated a bit at the center, revealing a distressed pair of eyes that Izuku immediately recognized. Haken. Before he could even register what he was doing, Izuku had hurdled the police barricade and was running as hard as he could towards his best friend. He heard several calls for him to stop but paid them no mind as he grabbed his backpack and flung it right at the sludge villain's face. The sludge man yelled in pain as his many books and school supplies impacted with his eyeball, causing him to falter enough for Kitsuki to free his face and mouth. Leg. Deku, what the fuck are you doing? Get the hell out of here. Despite the fear coursing throughout Izuku's body, he somehow managed to give Kitsuki a shaky smile. No can do, Kaken. Even though I'll probably never live to hear you say it, we're partners and best friends. Be sure to make a name for yourself at UA, for the both of us, okay? Izuku's nervous grin may have fooled some people, but Kitsuki was not just some people. He knew exactly what the nerd was going to do. He could see it in his eyes. Deku. His call was for naught, as Izuku had already jumped several feet back and shed his school uniform, leaving him in only a green and black bodysuit, the same suit that Bakugo and his parents had helped Inko pay for to keep Izuku from being naked when he used his quirk. Izuku wasted no time in transforming into an elephant and kicking over a nearby fire hydrant, causing a pillar of water to shoot out of the ground. Taking as much as he could into his trunk, Izuku turned towards the sludge villain holding Bakugo and sprayed it as hard as he could. Tuning out the garbled yells of the villain, along with the shouts from both heroes and civilians behind him, Izuku focused on nothing but using all his strength to free Kitsuki. There is no way I'm not gonna catch a case for Quirk use in public with all these people here. I guess this is it. Just as he was about to run out of water in his trunk, he saw that Kitsuki was mostly free from the sludge, but if it means I can save someone, no regrets. Breaking into a run, Izuku quickly morphed to his gorilla form and grabbed Kitsuki by the waist, yanking him completely free of the sludge villain and tossing him to safety. Izuku was about to make a break for it himself, but the sludge villain somehow managed to trap him by the leg with one of its slimy tendrils. You are gonna die, you little brat. Detroit. Izuku's head shot up. Damn you, All Might. The villain screeched. Smash. The villain was once again obliterated by the sheer force of All Might's punch, completely freeing Izuku of entrapment. The wind caused by All Might's attack soared upwards, separating the clouds above and causing a dark overcast to quickly form above them. Holy shit, it's All Might. Wait, it's raining. Look at the clouds, they're moving. He changed the weather with a single punch. That's the #1 hero for you. Izuku looked on in disbelief. All Might had saved him again. Even after what was said between them. Rushing in to help, doing your best to help save the day, no matter the cost. That's the true test of a hero. Beast mode. After getting thoroughly reprimanded for recklessly rushing in to save Kitsuki while simultaneously being praised for his quirk, Izuku was making his way home, Kitsuki by his side brooding the whole way. After several minutes of silence, Kitsuki was the first one to speak. I didn't need your help, you damn nerd. I don't owe you anything, you got that. Izuku chuckled wistfully at his friend. I know, Kaken. I was just doing what anyone else would do. What a hero would do, right? PCH, none of those so-called pros had the balls to do anything, bunch of pussies. Izuku said nothing, but smiled at Kitsuki and kept walking. Izuku. Said boy froze in place, turning around to face his best friend. Izuku hadn't heard Kaken call him by his name in over 10 years, so he knew what he needed to say was serious. Kitsuki's face was unreadable for the most part, but Izuku could easily read the look in his eyes. You better not try and throw your damn dream away again like you did today. If you think that I am gonna accept being the best hero in the world without kicking your ass on the way up, you got another thing coming. Izuku could have sworn he saw a genuine smile flash across Kitsuki's face for a split second, but it vanished as soon as it appeared. The boys said nothing else to each other as Kitsuki turned down his street to head home, hands dug into his pockets. Izuku stood there for a moment, staring at Kitsuki's back. A small grin broke across his face as he shook his head and continued on towards his own house. I am here. Izuku jolted backwards in shock as All Might suddenly appeared out of nowhere and skidded to a halt in front of him. All Might. Where did you come from? Weren't you getting hounded by like a million reporters? All Might let out a booming laugh. I stand for justice, not sound bites. Because I am All Might, blurg. All Might puffed back into his skeleton form, wiping the blood dripping from his mouth. Young man, I came here to thank you and also to discuss our conversation from earlier. If you hadn't told me what you had, if you hadn't run into that fight, I would have been a worthless bystander watching from the crowd. You showed no hesitation to rush in and save your friend from a villain even pro heroes on the scene were wary to deal with. Tell me something. What were you thinking when you ran in to save that blonde kid? Izuku rubbed his chin in ponderance. Well, my legs kinda moved on their own. Before I knew it, I was there trying to save him. I even used my quirk knowing I would probably get in a lot of trouble for it, but Kaken is safe, so that's really all that matters to me. An excellent answer. You know, when recounting tales of heroics from the youths, all pros share a common element in their answer. They moved without thinking. Seeing someone in need and immediately going to their aid without any worries or fears to hold you back, that is the true essence of a hero. And to hear that you were willing to get into legal trouble just to save your friend, well, that's something that simply can't be ignored either. Izuku's insides were doing backflips and he started his idle right in the sunken-in eyes. What are you saying, All Might? All Might smirked. I'm saying I spoke too hastily earlier on the roof. From what I've seen from how you acted today, there is no doubt in my mind that you can become a hero. Those 5 words. Those 5 words from his idol, from his hero, they meant more than anything Izuku could think of. He could not hold back the emotions welling up within him and ended up hunched over on the ground, failing to hold back steady tears. I'm not done your heroic actions today, even with the doubts and worries I knew you had on yourself, it inspired me to act. To be the hero I'm supposed to be. I have been in town searching for the right person for a protege to take under my wing and eventually be my successor as the symbol of peace. He looked up at All Might with wide glistening eyes. Midoriya Izuku, I choose you. I deem you worthy of my power. My quirk is yours to inherit. Huh? Thanks for watching my video, and make sure to check out the author of this fanfic, link is in the description. See you next time, till then sayonara.